Food waste has always been an issue in the UK. We haven't really mastered how we're going to solve it. What we believe is that we can sit in between two major problems in the UK, which is food poverty, and it's also food waste.
1 in 5 people are in food poverty. That includes children that are in food poverty that aren't getting enough to eat. That's absolutely shocking and it's disgraceful in a first world economy.
We have more children living in poverty now than we ever have had before. We've got more people in food poverty now than we ever had before. So that's not acceptable, that's not indicative of an economy that's the 6th largest in the world. So let's be clear about that.
For us, it's just not logical. I mean, we feed people every day, and to think that in this country there are so many people going without food for no reason whatsoever.
The level of food waste in the UK being so high is truly shocking. The system itself is faulty. It's not just a supermarket or a whole host of supermarkets that are getting it wrong.
We have developed a culture whereby we expect everything to be dated and wrapped and perfect, which is not how our parents are brought up.
But we're so almost conditioned now to having what we want when we want it, and it just isn't sustainable either environmentally or economically or humanely.
With almost 7 million tonnes of food waste annually, which obviously is a huge amount, and I think that equates to about £12.5 billion in food waste.
I think we find food so disposable because a loaf of bread's so cheap, eggs are so cheap, and we don't think about the fact that a chicken's had to lay that egg and you know where it's come from. So I think our food's too cheap, to be honest. But then obviously there are people that can't afford it at all.
Love Food Hate Waste is all about helping people in this country, and we're really concerned because there is a growing issue around making the best of the food that we produce, not only in this country but in the world. People are starving, we're using valuable energy and resources to produce food that we don't eat.
Food that's grown or produced should be used for what it was intended for, which is to feed people. So currently FareShare UK are rescuing roughly about 8,000 tonnes per year of food. In Yorkshire here alone we take about 600 tonnes per year. That's about 50 tonnes a month.
The figures are quite startling. So 15 million tonnes a year of food is wasted in this country, and that means the average household is wasting about 150 kilograms worth of food, and most of that's avoidable, which is the other thing that's quite shocking about it.
Until you actually start to see the amounts and the types of food that are being thrown away, you really can't fully appreciate it. I didn't fully appreciate it. I was shocked the most when I took a whole load of potatoes into our house that were going to be thrown away simply because the bags were ripped.
Parameters that the supplier put in place for the products. They believe that they should be a certain size, shape and colour, and they should be a conformity and uniform. Farmers are being told, we don't want this 50 tonnes of carrots for no reason other than they don't all look the same size.
There's nothing wrong with them, they just don't look like we expect them to do. And I think we have to move that mindset away to not expect that everything is perfect and standard.
Many people will just turn their nose up at a carrot perhaps that's wonky or it's gone a little bit bendy, but when you're actually putting that into a delicious stew, you know, obviously you're getting some fresh vegetables and nutrients into it, and it's being cooked, so it doesn't really matter what it looks like.
We're not just talking throwing away funny looking vegetables because they don't look very nice. We're talking about throwing away bread for a start. Bread is the largest wasted food item.
You can still use that, just use it in a different way, make a bread and butter pudding. We've got croissants that come in that are stale, and we often make croissant bread and butter puddings out of those, and they're perfectly edible, they're not harmful to anyone, they just have to be used in a different way.
So part of the training that we do is about raising awareness of food waste in the home, encouraging people to realise that they do actually waste food, but then giving them hints and tips to help them change their behaviour.
The council's part of the Love Food Hate Waste campaign, and that aims to teach individuals ways that they can personally waste less food. So it's things like using a fridge and freezer better, planning meals properly, using leftovers. And the government really could make it clearer what sell-by dates mean. So best before doesn't mean food has to be thrown away at that point, but lots of people don't know that.
Never believe the best before. Always learn to trust your own senses and your own sense.
Your nose can tell you an awful lot and your eyes can tell you an awful lot. And common sense says, yes, that's fine.
That corrects two problems. One, we don't have too much waste in our own fridges, but also the supermarkets don't oversupply themselves with food that people don't actually end up eating.
So it's not about your individual wastage. It's not about, okay, well, it's okay, I bought it so I can do what I want with it, kind of. I think it's an ethical issue, which is we need to change the mindset of communities and mindset of people, and that's only going to happen through conversation and education and community development.
As a lecturer, I'm educating the next generation of chefs. I believe that they're going to go out into industry with the mindset that we've instilled into them with regards to wastage. If we can get the next generation thinking on the right plane of thought of how to minimise this wastage, it will just be a knock-on effect and they will pass that message on.
And I think we need to go back to those days when we had food shortages and remember how our parents and grandparents dealt with it, rather than just expecting there to be food all the time. Because for some people, 1 in 5 people go hungry. It isn't there all the time.
Unfortunately, it's very easy for us to, jump in the car, pop down to the supermarket and load our trolleys full of food that, we may never finish or eat, However, if you look on Google and see just how many food banks are within the Leeds area alone at the moment, it really is an issue.
And it's shameful that in 21st century, in a first world economy, we have food banks and people are reliant on them. A lot of people who use food banks are working, but a lot of poverty in Britain is people that are working, families where adults in the household are working.
In most cases, people are going because of changes to benefits, reduction in benefits. In some cases, people are being sanctioned for benefits when they shouldn't have been.
It's not a great British value. So I feel pretty angry that being such a large economy, we have food banks, we have people living in food poverty. I think it's unacceptable. It angers me. It's not something that is acceptable in this day and age. We said we'd be reducing food poverty, we'd reduce children living in poverty, and if we have food poverty, then that has a knock-on effect on people's abilities for learning, employment, all of the rest of it. So we really need to get rid of it.
And perhaps help those people get back on the feet, feed people, and use the food for the purpose as well. So get people back into training and back into work. So in the long term, people can start to help themselves as well.
Training people who can then pass messages on to other members of the public, to give them the confidence and the skills to pass on to other people, so they'll start to think about actually what they could do in their community or what they could do in the workplace to pass messages on.
I think that we need to be educating more in the communities and in schools from the beginning. Children should be learning those cooking skills and learning where their food goes to when it's wasted, learning what happens to the food when it goes to landfill and the harmful gases that go into the environment.
When food is wasted, it goes to landfill and it rots and it gives off methane gas, which is a potent greenhouse gas which has an impact on global warming.
When food comes back to us, where possible, we like to be able to put it down the food processor, which is a grinding machine we have in the wash-up area. This grinds the food up into very small particles, which can then be washed away down the drain and make it so that we can get rid of it as hygienically as possible.
Primary purpose of this cafe and all the other Real Junk Food Project cafes is to make sure that that food ends up in a belly and not a bin. That is going to have a positive effect, hopefully, on the environment.
But the key message is at grassroots, what we try to do is keep cooking skills alive, is to teach people to cook for themselves from scratch, healthy, nutritious meals, talk about budget and food waste, and hopefully pass on them skills, to our friends, our families, for the next generations to come through, and hopefully stop it being an issue in the future.
We've grown up in a society where food is processed and packaged, something that you can talk with the older generations about and learn from their experience really of dealing with food.
This is a threefold thing. We need to address it within our homes, we need to address it as a community in our shopping, and we need to address it nationally with our suppliers.
It's about raising awareness of it at every level, which is why, you know, I love the work I do. I love to see the food that we receive that actually is going to go to some good. But personally, my mission is to make sure that we rescue as much food as we can and get it to as many people as we can.